All right, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the eighth episode of the SWAPO Party Youth League Talks. I'm joined today by Comrade Dino Ballotti, a sports expert. I'll put it that way, since he's one of the executives of our very successful sports club in Namibia, as well as parliamentary hopeful. And I'm also joined by Comrade Abel. It's one of our young people in the SWAPO Party Youth League, and today we are bringing to you another exciting episode that will focus on the sports as outlined in the SWAPO Party Elections Manifesto. As we all know, we've been talking about the unity in diversity as one of the mantra of the SWAPO Party campaign trail in the 2024 November elections. That is underlined by unity in diversity, natural resources beneficiation, as well as youth empowerment for sustainable development. I think I'm going to start with Comrade Ballotti here with one of the questions, or perhaps before I go on, I must give you a chance to introduce yourself, even if I've already done that.
Thank you very much, Comrade Taddeus. As mentioned, my name is Dino. I think I wear a few hats. One of them is football, actively playing a servant leadership role at Jolinho in the mighty Kavango East region, but equally very passionate about entrepreneurship, passionate about SME development in country, and being able to partake in various disciplines and in various roles. But excited to unpack mainly the youth agenda this evening. So I've taken a few notes and look forward to having that conversation. Thank you.
All right. Perhaps you want to introduce yourself.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for having me. I'm Abel, as earlier alluded to. So yes, as a youth or a member of the Youth League and the SWAPO Party, I also champion the youth agenda. I also wear a few hats as an internal auditor by profession. I'm on the SWAPO's or Commerce Youth League's REC subcommittee for advocacy and planning as well. And then also previously involved in innovation, research, science, technology sectors, currently in the transport sector, in the public sector as well. So happy to be here. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Comrade Abel. Comrade Ballotti, I'm going to start with you. As I've mentioned before, tonight's conversation will be focused on youth empowerment for sustainable development through the lens of SWAPO Party. And looking at your background, I think when we started the campaign, our Vice President has been highlighting that the party will focus on youth empowerment, and refers to the party's plan to equip youth with opportunities necessary to pursue their dreams, and as well as to develop and serve their nation. Now, you have extensive experience in the MSME innovation and acceleration with a proven track record in training and funding, as well as empowering youth-owned businesses. Throughout your career, you have developed institution, mechanism, and created various approaches towards the scalability of MSMEs, which are crucial to the economic vibrancy, and to the extent sustainable development. Let's have that conversation now. What is precisely youth empowerment, and how can this be harnessed towards sustainable development?
Thank you for the lovely introduction. And I think, honestly speaking, the purpose, or my purpose for the longest time, has been how do we support entrepreneurs in country? How do we really assist SMEs? SMEs no longer just want money. SMEs need all kinds of empowerment. And I like when you say, how can we harness this towards sustainable development? So I think it goes without saying that youth empowerment is really the cornerstone of Namibia's future development. And we understand the sectors that are emerging. We're all very excited. But at the same time, youth empowerment, it's the process that enables young people to develop their skills, their knowledge, and even the ability to make informed decisions and really take actions on these decisions. We talk about education, we talk about training, but employment and leadership. Comrade Abel is giving us a great breakdown of the work that he does as a youth leader. And again, the focus for young people can not only be on the immediate needs of young people. The focus, as far as I'm concerned, is recognizing them as active participants and drivers of the sustainable change that we want to see. So again, empowering youth, it's about ensuring that they have the tools. We can all give examples of being empowered. And being empowered is not being given given a tender. Being empowered is really getting those platforms, getting those opportunities, innovating, creating these opportunities. So there's 5 points that I noted down when we talk about the contribution and how young people can contribute. And so I think, just to quickly name them, innovation and creativity comes from young people. Our senior leadership and our elders have the wisdom. The young people are able to innovate. And the basic definition of innovation is doing something a little bit differently. Citizenship or active citizenship rather, from young people is what we want to see as they become decision makers. Young people understand the challenges of young people. Entrepreneurship, I think, goes without saying. And then maybe social inclusion. And I'm so excited that that Her Excellency, our Vice President, she's addressing the social inequalities that we see in Namibia. And again, it's by providing young people with these opportunities to be the change. So without going into too much detail, I think that would be how I look at sustainable development with the youth focus. Then you comment.
Oh, thank you. That is a pretty much interesting take. I think I'm going to take it now. The next question is going to be posed to you, Comrade Abel. That is simplistically, sustainable development underscores the imperative to meet today's needs without, compromising tomorrow. So what are some of the challenges overall hindering sustainable development in Namibia, according to you, Comrade Abel?
Yes, thank you very much for that question. So sustainable development, Namibia faces various challenges, some of which I've also taken a few notes here and there. They relate to economic inequalities, firstly, where there are just disparities in terms of opportunities or access to those opportunities for people of various backgrounds. Obviously, these are issues that I'm aware that are addressed in our manifesto, in the SWAPO Party manifesto, to bridge those inequalities and ensure that everybody from whatever background is able to access opportunities from an equity perspective. I think another one is really the access to education and skills training. Now, the jury is still out on whether is it an access issue or is it an awareness issue. So as youth, we are actually responsible for ensuring that that the message reaches every corner of this country. That, there are certain programs here and there. We hear of them, but it seems very fragmented. Maybe it's one of those issues where we need to sort of create a cohesive framework and a network of all of these opportunities, or a one-stop shop where these opportunities can be granted. We are also talking about access to information digital. I think the digital drive and we are aware that not everybody still has proper access to those digital areas. Those of us in the urban centers, we are fortunate because you can always click a button and you get a plethora of different resources, etc. But we still have a bit of a way to go to make sure that message or those platforms are available in the rural areas, develop those areas, make sure that people are capacitated with that knowledge and understanding. Another issue is our reliance on non-renewable resources. As a country, obviously, non-renewable is self-explanatory. If you are talking about sustainability, at some point we need to move into secondary sort of industries, away from the extractive to the value-adding sectors, and ensure that things like our minerals are being processed locally for export, etc. So we need to develop that capacity. Another thing is infrastructure. I think infrastructure is also a hindrance. It's not sufficient. I think the SWAPO party has done considerably well, given the limited resources at its disposal. We all know infrastructure costs. However, we still need to, improve on that, add a bit more. Over the coming 5 years, I think that has also been addressed in our manifesto. It's quite targeted, I think, in that respect. And then also just ensuring that youth participation. Youth participation, like Comrade Ballotti just said, is to ensure that it's that active participation, not just recipients of something, but actually the drivers. So we need to be proactive. We need to send the message out there to our young people to start taking up space in that sustainable development objective.
Yeah, well, I love how in as much as you have recognized the challenges we are faced as a country or as young people, you still recognize the significant progress the government has made over the years in terms of infrastructural development, most especially, and as well as youth interventions in terms of empowering the youth. And talking about infrastructure, you realize that you start with our roads, for instance, because those are some of the infrastructure that create a conducive environment for either, not only young people, everybody who wishes to, grow their businesses or grow their talent. They will need those networks to connect with the rest of the country. And as well as if you look at our intervention, government intervention, if I may put it that way, in terms of educating our people, having institutions like the NSFA fund to fund our students, and there are quite a number of them. I know the Ministry of Trade and Industrial Development runs a scheme, equipment scheme, supporting the young businesses around the country. And I was looking at the report of a minister maybe 2 weeks ago when she was reporting as to how many young people they have supported so far with these equipment aid schemes in terms of, just supporting young people to so I think that was quite a solid submission from your side. And I think I'm going to come back to you now, my brother, with the third question. Since I know you being a sports executive, most of us participants in sport definitely are young people. You deal with young people on a daily, so perhaps can you share some of the inspiring youth-driven initiatives that have made an impact on the Namibian economy?
Thank you. So I was very intentional, and I had a long list coming to think of which youth-owned businesses I can share. So I need to put a disclaimer that I apologize to those that I'm not mentioning, right? But what's inspiring for us as young people, and I do consider myself a retired youth, but His Excellency Dr. Mbumba said 1 or 2 years back at a platform, he said, us youth. So if he can be a young person, then it's a state of mind, and we're all young. But when you say these youth-driven initiatives, there's really 4 businesses that I want to highlight. And again, it speaks to our manifesto, which Her Excellency says is our Bible. So this document, I urge people to please go and read it, right? And it's the commitment, and it's SWAPO's commitment to youth empowerment, which is reflected in these youth initiatives. So the first one, and I hope Comrade Abel and even yourself will know all 4 of these businesses, is Lefa, Namibia. And it's Malkis Ausiku, who's the founder. And really this is that ride-hailing service which a young Namibian has created and has scaled. And it solves many challenges around the transportation sort of sector. It creates jobs equally. The second one is a young lady that I'm very inspired by, Christophine Kanjo, and her company is Tulande Online. And so Tulande Online, it's an e-commerce platform, and I think we're all familiar with the Amazons of the world, but this is a proudly and a unique Namibian e-commerce platform by Namibians for Namibians, and it supports many local businesses, obviously through goods and services that can be purchased through the platform. The third one is a young gentleman from my hometown, Jose Kahuna, and I hope you've tasted the Mutete juice, Mutete hibiscus juice. It's a Namibian juice made from Namibian hibiscus for Namibian people. And again, it's a youth-inspired, driven company initiative. And if all 3 million and a few thousand Namibians can drink 1 bottle of Mutete juice a month, that company will employ tens and tens of thousands of fellow Namibians. And the last one I thought noteworthy to also name him last is Yeni AI. And the founder is Vitalis Haupindi. And this is a revolutionary education AI, artificial intelligence, that's won numerous international awards by giving education to anyone with access to internet. And it solves many social challenges that we find. So, you know, I ask for forgiveness for the companies I've not mentioned. But those 4, Lefa, Yeni, Tulande Online, and Mutete Hibiscus Juice are Namibian youth-owned businesses that are scaling and doing amazing work. And really we're proud of these young Namibians. Thank you.
It's a very much interesting take. In as much as you know, you find young Namibians struggling to make it in the business fraternity. They are still inspiring stories. I mean, some of the companies you mentioned, I have not heard about them before, but it just shows you how, in as much as we have these challenges, there's still hope, and there are also young people who are, you know, rising to make it happen, not only for themselves, but for our country. I'm gonna now move to you, Comrade Abel, with the 4th question. And this one, I think, in as much as the country or the government has been trying to, you know, create that conducive environment for young people to either, you know, excel in school, excel in business, there's always been challenges, especially for the entrepreneurs. And most of those you find lack of funding through the institutions that we already know government has created for that specific purpose. So I'm gonna bring this question to you just to share with us those barriers often, you know, encountered by the youth in contributing towards sustainable development.
Thank you very much, Comrade. So I think it's not even the elephant in the room anymore, but funding, or rather lack of access to funding for youth enterprises. I think it's always, it keeps coming up. And I've been involved in institutions where the mandate was to promote innovation and entrepreneurship and startups. However, I think maybe also from a legacy perspective, because we need to understand that a government is a bureaucracy. And in sort of realigning and streamlining programs and structures to target new, you know, challenges. It's quite a, how do I say, it's a challenge sometimes. It's quite a daunting task. But in my experience, I found that the pivot in terms of what was, you know, always considered the mainstream, the pivot has started to, you know, emerge. We are seeing more and more focus on the youth now. 5 years ago, the youth discussion was probably not as, it didn't take as much traction as it is today. But testament to that is also the SWAPO party manifesto. It is very, very, it has a youth bias now, if I may say so. Bias not in the pejorative term. However, we still, and I'm happy that that lack of funding is being addressed. There is a financial commitment of about 85.7 billion that is actually in the manifesto, which, you know, I had, firstly, I was the skeptic until I read that. Then I thought, okay, so my point is almost moot now. But nevertheless, still recognizable that the excess of funding is still there. We need to just ensure that our government delivers on, you know, ensuring that those monies are distributed to the areas where they are earmarked. Another issue is the mentorship, insufficient mentorship. I think we can talk resources, we can give people, etc., but there should be access to networks which allow businesses to scale. Creating partnerships from, you know, those existing institutions already becomes very pivotal. So I think ensuring or creating a lot of forums and co-creation platforms where innovators, startups, scholars meet, you know, people who are already established in the industries, and then create those synergies for that innovation to happen and those partnerships to take root, I think becomes very critical. So I'm not trying to be too lenient on the party, but I think that is a part where everybody actually has a role to play. We can say mentorship has to happen, but that does not just belong to it doesn't belong to an institution. We all need to take hands and actually address that area of mentorship and professional networks. So when we talk youth empowerment, I think there's also a tendency to focus a lot on entrepreneurship. But like there are professions. I'm an internal auditor, for example, and currently I'm on the body for internal audit profession or the Institute of Internal Auditors, the professional body. It has not taken traction here, but we are trying to develop that and promote it to ensure that young would-be internal auditors are coming on board to understand the profession and all of that. So career mentorship and all of these career fairs are things that we probably should drive more. Personally, I have to even take it up upon myself to start going to the rural schools to explain what on earth is internal auditing, because people just don't know. So that is actually me and you as the youth that is responsible for that. We need to do that, and it goes across the country. On the other aspect is limited education and training opportunities in the high demand sectors. That includes technology, green energy, and agribusiness. So our education, higher education frameworks and our vocational training, there's still room for capacity building in that space. And so that I thought was also necessary to highlight. And a key one that I was even warned to mention when I came here, the regulatory and bureaucratic hurdles. I think this has been a song that we've been preaching for quite some time. I think the time has come where we eventually try to streamline the processes to ensure that people can access certain or register and apply for certain opportunities without much, hindrances, etc. So yeah, in a nutshell, thank you.
That's a very, very interesting take. Thanks for taking that well. Now,
I want to ask if I can break protocol.
Yeah,
because I'm very interested in that topic, and I wanted to just give a small contribution.
Yes.
So please, when the camera is off, please don't discipline me. So, and it's such a noteworthy point, and I'm only going to speak to access to capital, access to funding, access to financing, and this was my world for 4 years. And we spoke about how do young people, entrepreneurs, SMEs, get access to capital. Namibia has enough money. The JPF is the second largest government institution pension fund in Africa with our small 3 million population. Namibia has money. The commercial banks, we all read the newspapers. We see them declaring billions of profit after tax. Now, the challenge that we face, and it's in the manifesto, is that when we talk about this access to capital for young people, there is no, and I'm whether we're controversial or not, there's no targeted funds only for youth-owned businesses. I was a banker for 2 months until last week. And in these 2 months, we learned a lot about banking. And really, the bank does not look at a young person, a black person, a white person. They see a business and they need to make money. And they take depositors' money and they loan that money to another person. And they need to be responsible with their lending. But the challenge that we have, we only think of commercial banks when we talk of access to finance for young people. We think of microfinanciers or cash loans with 30% plus interest rates, which is just not sustainable for any youth-owned business. So, when we talk of the manifesto, and I wanted to highlight it, we talk about expanding financial products which are tailored to young people. This is where the DBN plays a critical role for youth-owned businesses in country. When we talk about the GIPF mandates going to incubation asset managers, and they're giving 500, 600, 700 million to each incubation asset manager, we cannot have ticket sizes of 10 million plus. A youth-owned business needs 50,000, 100,000. And when they get it, they need a 6-month, 12-month patient repayment. To get 100,000 for a youth-owned business and say, you start to pay us after 12 months, it allows that business to go through all the challenges to actually become a sustainable organization or a scalable SME. So, the mentorship, I love that when you speak to that. But again, and I just wanted to add, so I apologize, that access to capital, Namibia has enough money, but the challenge is we're not targeting young people. And I love that there's a bias, and there's definitely a bias in our manifesto to youth businesses, or to youth. 70% of Namibia's young people, 70%. And so we need to be understanding what do young people need. So I apologize, Comrade Moderator.
Yeah, no, you're very much welcome for that contribution, and I think it answers a lot of questions that young people, in as much as, some of these facilities are available, most of young people do not know about it, especially those that are in the remote areas. And oftentimes they will come and ask about, but the Namibian government does not even do this for us, while the government has already declared that, or have already availed that particular facility for the empowerment of young people. But recognizing that institutions like the Development Bank of Namibia can actually, come to play and then champion the agenda in terms of, availing those finances, as well as GIPF. It's good that you are highlighting that it's one of the biggest. Looking at our population, I think that is commendable. And I think that contribution was very much welcome. So I'm going to start with you again. Okay. With the next question. With the next question. And I think that speaks to actually the vision of the presidential candidate of the SWAPO party, His Excellency Dr. Netumbo Nandi-Ndaitwah, in terms of her vision in taking youth emancipation, in terms of youth empowerment, as well as, just Namibians, realizing their hopes and aspirations under her administration. I know it oftentimes during her public addresses, she has highlighted the fact that, yes, she recognizes she's a senior citizen, but in as much as she is able to, provide that wisdom to young people, and she would want to work with young people and then be the ones to champion and realize her vision. Whether it's to coexist with them in leadership or, to just create that opportunity and then be the one to carry on the fight of socioeconomic development. So coming to the question, I just want you to perhaps tell us how do we shape and conceptualize a Namibian dream, building a house where youth are free to dream and attain those dreams as envisioned by Comrade Netumbo Nandi-Ndaitwah.
Thank you. I think, as every Namibian, we know, rest his soul, our former president mantra, where he said, no one should be left behind, or no one should be left out. And I think when we talk about presidential candidate, her message, which has become very clear over the past few months, at least to myself, is one where every Namibian has the opportunity to thrive. And you mentioned it, rural or urban sort of setting, regardless, whether you're from the village, my village Okaipe, or whether you're here in Windhoek. This is not a Windhoek country that we live in. We have our 57 local authorities. We know of 121 constituencies. No one left behind. And so the dream recognizes, for me at least, if we're speaking of an inclusive society, there's maybe 3 points. And the first one is that the opportunities are equal. A young person in Windhoek and a young person in Tsumkwe really should have the same opportunities, the same access to healthcare, education, job opportunities. You mentioned earlier, Comrade Abel, that there's a digital divide. The access to information or the information disparity, the access to infrastructure cannot just be a privilege for some of the largest cities in country. The second one is youth-led solutions when we talk of this inclusive society. And again, young people should not be passive recipients. But we need to, we need these young people to be empowered, and they need to lead. And these young people need to be the ones creating solutions which address our challenges. Nobody knows the Namibian problem better than a Namibian. Nobody can articulate a challenge in Kavango West better than someone that lives in Kavango West. And I think the third one is sustainability, which is our theme or our topic today. And, you know, we can speak of green energy, we can speak of agri, we can speak of digital transformation, but sustainability is something that can continue for thousands of years. It cannot only be for your and my generation. It needs to be for our great-great-great-grandchildren. That's the role that we're playing. So SWAPO's commitment is really to ensure that every step of this journey is designed to include the voices, the ideas, the aspirations of young people. And Menetumbo, as mentioned, our vice president, she's been very deliberate and very intentional around crafting this manifesto with a youth bias. And I'm going to steal Comrade Abel's statement, and that will be my statement all the way to elections and beyond, that this is a manifesto that really has young people at heart. And I think that's what excites me. I made an error, I think it was last week, and they said it was a grave error where I misquoted our principles of our party, which please don't expel me for that one. But we went and we asked for forgiveness, and we talk of solidarity, freedom, and justice. And those are the principles which can really allow us as young people, as Namibians, to really build this inclusive Namibian house. And I'm not going to go into what they stand for, but it's those principles that guide what we're trying to do. So yeah, that's my contribution.
Yeah, I'm just glad that you are putting these matters out clearly, and knowing that you are going to go to Parliament and probably end up in the executive. So you will be the champion, and I know young people will be ready to hold you accountable in terms of. Thanks for that interesting take. Now, Comrade Abel, you're gonna take this one. I just want you to tell us what are some of the mechanisms that must be established to increase provision for access to support schemes and financial products. I think that is similar to what you have just explained earlier in terms of creating that conducive environment for young people, and perhaps eradicating the bureaucracy in terms of young people accessing some of the already existing platforms through which they can grow their businesses or their talents, which are quite many. I think I know a couple of them. But since I'm not on the receiving end tonight, I'm going to put it to you just to then tell us what are some of those mechanisms that must be established to increase provision for access to support schemes and financial products for youth enterprises.
Thank you very much. I think the order of those two questions is inverted. I think the relevant person would have been or probably Comrade Ballotti, but I'll take it on. So just I'm going to try and be a layman as far as possible over here. You see, I think we also, some of the challenge, before I go into your question, is when we talk about youth challenges, we have a tendency of abstracting the problem. But if we just look closer to home, we have brothers, we have siblings, we have relatives that are the youth and who are actually experiencing these very issues that we're talking about. And we are always at pains to try and explain how and what needs to be done when we are very close. So that's just to put into, to give a different perspective, to say, look, maybe let's do introspection closer to home as well. And then to answer your question, I think creating dedicated youth finance schemes, obviously that is a model. I think that we have taken, we said, financing is there, but I think Comrade Ballotti already mentioned that, yes, indeed, financing is there, but it's not targeted to youth. It's not, exclusive to youth only. So I think if we start there, then we are already starting to do something very good. I alluded to the 85.7 billion. That one is specifically talking to youth intervention. It's a youth intervention across various items. You are talking about new factories, national apprenticeship program, the work integrated learning. These are funds dedicated to those areas. We are talking about sport. We are talking about the National Youth Fund. We are talking about housing and sanitation for youth. We are talking about education, arts and creative industries. We are talking about agriculture, youth bias, and then universal health coverage and e-systems where youth can participate. So we have recognized, I think that problem was recognized, and we are going to start addressing that. On the other hand, establishing more innovation hubs and incubators. We have a few, but they are not enough. We need to scale them now. I think we have, of course, Rome was not built in one day. And that is a very popular adage. And I think we need to be sober in making that assessment for this country as well. I know there's a lot of frustration, but what has been done so far, it started from zero, and it can only get better. So we need to champion that. I think what we do from the subcommittee at the Advocacy and Planning is that we actually target specific commitments in the manifesto, and we actually confront the implementing institutions. So even from that perspective, the first thing is also to say, look, administrators of government, of public enterprises, OMAS, get serious. Because sometimes I think, the technocrats are also failing us somewhere. I think we need to start calling a spade a spade. Those who are actually in charge with the governance and executing programs are actually not doing so. Like we have ailing parastatals. That cannot be a SWAPO issue only. We need to, heads must start rolling somewhere. So that is also part of things that need to be done to ensure that we thrive in that. And then also, maybe last but not least, or maybe penultimate, strengthening public-private partnerships. So a developmental state, unfortunately, is that most of development is left to the state. But we need to recognize the private sector, but we also have to hold them accountable for CSI, corporate social investment, corporate social responsibility. I think for a very long time, that area has also been neglected. And those partnerships can only foster that youth participation and inclusion. So I think that one is a key one, especially, and I think it's also taken care of in the manifesto in terms of our mineral resource beneficiation, compelling the mineral players to actually, fulfill the CSI and CSR imperatives. And then finally now, last but not least, reducing the bureaucratic barriers again. So we said the bureaucratic barriers are there, the regulatory barriers. We need to streamline. We need to probably do business process mapping, value chain mapping, and all of that. We need to get the experts on board and say, look, how do we, eliminate some of this, what is unnecessary, or what is prerequisite and what is co-requisite, because some things you can fulfill certain conditions later. So we need to start thinking differently in terms of how we do that. And just to highlight that financial commitment, 85.7 billion, it's actually targeted to the youth. So over 5 years, it's a lot of money, 85.7 billion. Yeah. So I think as the advocacy and planning, we will actually be very paying a lot of attention to how that is disbursed. Thank you very much.
All right. I think at this rate, if we give you that responsibility to be the appointing authority, every government ministry is going to have a targeted department, directing their mandate on specifically youth issues.
Definitely. Maybe I should also add, this was an idea from one of the other comrades, is to say, look, why not have a youth desk in every institution? We know that His Excellency, the late, may his soul rest in peace, created the first youth advisor. So it can only get better. So I think the time is now to say every institution must actually have a youth desk. That was the idea of Comrade William. So I thought it necessary to put it out here because it can be one of the key to alleviating some of these problems. Thank you very much.
Right. I wouldn't want to exhaust this one without having your take on it. Do you want to take it on?
On the question of
question of what are some of the mechanisms that must be established to increase provision for access to support schemes and financial products for youth enterprises?
Honestly, even from the few notes that I prepared, Comrade Abel has really hit it nail on the head almost with everyone. And I think the one that I would love to not only see, so we're not here talking about the future, we're talking about right now, but the one maybe just to amplify is those incubators and accelerators. We need to see more incubation, and that's when the hand-holding takes place. So I am conscious of time, but I think that's maybe just one addition to say we need to see more incubation centers running nationally to add more value to youth entrepreneurs. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Now, I think we're nearing today's episode or today's conversation. And I would want to have the take of both of you. I know you as a politician, you as a young politician, this one shouldn't be difficult. And we recognize that all of you here are members of a SWAPO party, publicly so. This is a SWAPO party youth league event. And I think there is no ambiguity in what to expect in terms of either their opinions. And I think I'm just glad that they are indeed informed by the facts of what the party has committed in doing in their elections manifesto, or what the government has been doing over the years. So finally, in coming to conclusion of this episode, being a politician or being a young politician, it is a common practice that when we come to the end of this, you should now convince the young people out there
to vote for SWAPO,
as to why they should vote for SWAPO party, and as to why they should vote for Comrade Netumbo Nandi-Ndaitwah as its presidential candidate.
Question, yes. Yeah, and that's the question I spent the most time really applying my mind. And I've been looking at my notes as we've been engaging, but I think for this one, I just asked for permission to really just speak exactly to that one-liner, or rather short reason. And I like the analogy of Namibia. So this is an analogy of the NIPDB. I'm not going to claim it as mine. And Namibia, in terms of the value system at NIPDB, stands for no one left behind, being accountable, making a difference, being innovative, being brilliant, having integrity, and being agile. So those qualities of being a true Namibian, I think sort of sets the tone for why people should vote for SWAPO. And why young people, as a demographic, should really consider Her Excellency as our next head of state and to drive this agenda. And so, for me, joining the SWAPO party, it's our liberation party. We all know in our national anthem, their blood waters our freedom. Now, again, the fight was for freedom. The fight now is economic emancipation. That is the fight. The fight is job creation. And, you know, in one of our party songs, and I don't want to belabor, but we talk about the time now is for hard work. And it's probably always been hard work, but now more than ever, to the young people, to anyone listening, the time now is really for hard work. And I appreciate Comrade Abel saying it's a collective. It's not the individual responsibility of any one ministry, office, or agency. It's a collective. Even from the opposition, it's a collective to fight and to work hard for Namibia. So a young person in a rural area, in a city, even those in the diaspora, SWAPO's deliberate and intentional focus on youth in our Manifesto Bible ensures that no one is left behind. We are building an inclusive Namibia where we want young people to dream. We want young people to innovate. We want young people to lead. And so maybe to say voting for SWAPO because we are honestly committed to walking this journey hand in hand and creating these opportunities that young people want to see. So to summarize all of that, why to vote for SWAPO? It's, in my view, it's a youth-led focus party with the fight for economic emancipation. And it's the time for hard work. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I think I'm gonna take it to you now. I don't want you to copy his words, but I remember in the second last question, he gave you your flowers. He said, "I'm not gonna take that one." I don't know whether he did a great job with putting it out there, but I think we still need your voice as to why you think Namibians and most especially young people should vote for SWAPO Party and its presidential candidate, Comrade Netumbo Nandi-Ndaitwah.
Yes, thank you very much. I sometimes consider myself a passive politician. I don't think my involvement is enough yet, but I like where I am still. But what I can say is that, and the beauty about reading is that you can see what is factual and what is sentiment expressed. Reading the current manifesto versus the old one, you can really see the paradigm shift. I think that one should be clear. And I think as a society, yes, we are very lazy readers, if at all. The best way to convince someone today is to say, look, the blueprint is there. The social contract is actually there. If you read it, I think it's very simplified. And I think as a technocrat and an executor in business, in corporate settings, it's one of the best national strategies so far because it's not complicated. There are smaller entities that have bigger, more complicated business plans, etc., than what this manifesto is. So just on that basis alone, the paradigm shift is very clear, unequivocal. Secondly, I would like to be the, how do you say, I don't want to be too old, the youth, like, but I would like to refer the fellow youth to a book, not just youth, actually everybody, Factfulness by Hans Rosling. And in that book, what it does is, it gives us the perspective of development through time. I was born in 91, so obviously that time I could not see nothing. But in my life experience, I've experienced the change gradually over time. And because of the gradual nature of change, we don't necessarily recognize it. This book, it highlights how the human bias works to current. Whatever is now is sort of, but we fail to acknowledge what the progress has been over time. So if you read that book, it really gives you a better perspective of understanding how development works, how things are improving, and although you are in anguish at that point in time, you still have to look at the numbers because the numbers do not lie. And so that would be my final call to say, look, if you read that book and you look at the development and you look at the new paradigm shift and the future-focused manifesto, I think we are on the right path. And therefore vote for SWAPO Party and vote for Netumbo Nandi-Ndaitwah. Thank you very much.
Surprised this time around you didn't reference the 85.7 billion. Because I think that is a blueprint. And so this is your money as young people, and you must make sure you vote for SWAPO so that you access this money. Because if you do not, then there is no 8.5 and 85.7 billion for youth intervention. So I think we have come now to the end of our episode. I'm, as your moderator, I'm very thankful for hosting you, Comrade Ballotti. Thanks for coming through. Thanks, Comrade Abel, for that solid submission throughout. And I think you did your homework.
Thank you, Comrade.
Yeah, you did your homework, and I think everybody was well prepared and took it seriously. I think we're just going to thank the team, the SWAPO Party League team, for hosting us tonight. And to our viewers, thank you so much for tuning in. Most definitely you should keep on following the SWAPO Party League page, as more of this unpacking of the SWAPO Party Elections Manifesto will continue to proceed until the 27th of November, in which all the Namibian people are expected to go and vote. And as a SWAPO Party member, I will say go and vote for SWAPO Party and its presidential candidate. Thank you.